Welcome back to Unhinged Red Flags.
I'm unhinged.
I'm the red flag.
So this week we decided we're gonna lighten it up a little bit. The last several episodes we've had were kind of heavy, and here's Luca for his daily dose.
Hi, buddy.
So today we're gonna talk about our professional lives a little bit. More so
Down.
leaning towards, so I'm currently a CNA.
And I used to be a CNA.
And that's actually where we met, was
9 whole years
nine
ago.
whole years ago in a land far away.
Far away.
So
God, that place really was fucking hell.
it was. So we're gonna discuss past residents that we dealt with, the crazy bullshit we dealt with,
Stories
from other coworkers, from
other facilities that we worked in.
yep. So
Just kind of an overall.
fun amount of craziness.
So, like, what got you interested in as a CNA?
So I had decided when I was in 8th grade that I was going to be a nurse.
Mhm.
Like that was the game plan. Funny how things change, but here we are. But the step up from being a nurse is being a CNA. You start as a CNA and you work your way up.
Mhm.
Well, the good people do anyways. Not saying anything to nurses who weren't CNAs, but like you get a much broader scope.
You get a bigger appreciation for your fellow coworkers.
And for the people that you delegate to.
Yeah.
So, I got my CNA license in 2012. Yep. That's it. And I started working at the facility that we met at. You started working shortly after.
Lily was born.
Lily
She was
was
born in
born.
2013.
So I had
So
already been there.
2014 is
I had
when
already been there
started.
about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And, at that time, I was going through some shit.
As one does.
She is some shit.
I am some
We're working at a nursing home, a skilled nursing facility,
Yep.
also known as a SNF.
Mhm.
SNF. And we have a lot of fun stories from our days working at the nursing facility, and then afterwards, in home health care.
Yeah.
I continued to work in a different nursing facility, and now
I
I
went
work
in-
in a hospital.
Yeah, we went from the nursing facility together to her going to a different nursing facility and me going into home health care
And then I went into home health care for a short stint,
and then into
the hospital
hospital. And I went from home health care to EMT, very, very short amount of time before I injured myself, and then into like the
The more admin side.
admin side of the
hospital work.
hospital clinic work.
So we still work together.
Same
now.
same facility again, just different aspects.
Very
of it.
different departments, very different aspects. So that's your overview of it. We start our lovely tales off. I think collectively as one, we can start with our favorite little Spitfire.
We'll call her Gertrude.
We'll call it really does fit. All of the names that we provide will be changed.
Yeah.
We will not name the facility. We're not here to get into legal trouble. We're just here to have a good laugh.
Yeah.
So
So this particular resident, I think my favorite one-liner out of her, and I heard it almost on a nightly basis because we work second shift, and
into third shift.
into third shift primarily. But she, like, the later the day went on, the more hell she wrote.
The battier she got.
But I think my favorite thing out of her mouth was, have you ever taken a flying leap before? And I was like, no. And she was like, well, do you want to?
And
like, every day of my life do I want to take that flying
the
leap.
funny thing about her was she was 90 pounds soaking
If that.
wet. And it took 3 people to do any type of cares
Cares on her.
with her because she was loopier than loopy and violent.
And you had to have, like, that third person was just to keep her attention on them.
Right.
And
Like,
to talk to her and just kind of distract her from anything else that was going on.
if you've ever been a CNA, you know, or in healthcare in general, a caregiver, you know that sometimes, like, when you transfer a patient, when you move them from one place to another, you're basically giving them a hug and then picking them up, putting them down.
Flopping them down.
So,
Very
one
gently.
person, right, it was a gentle thing. One person was there to do that, to give her the hug. The other person was behind that person, holding onto her claws.
Because otherwise she would
She
scratch you.
God, and you couldn't clip her nails because she would never sit for that. And the third person was to, like,
Help to distract.
or, like, drop her drawers if she had to go onto the bathroom, because that was another thing we heard on repeat constantly. If it wasn't "Where's Nikki," and we'll get to that, it was, "I have to go to the bathroom. I have to go to the bathroom."
If you heard it
on
once,
repeat.
If you heard it once in the shift, you heard it 8,000 times.
And then if you went up
all
to
the
her,
way down the hallway.
and then if you went up to her and you, like, went next to her ear, because, you know, all the old little ladies are deaf. If you went right up next to her and you said, "Hey, Gertrude, do you have to go to the bathroom?" She would go, "Why would you think that, you idiot? I've never been treated like this before. I've been in 30 homes and nobody's ever talked to me the way you do." And then off she would go in her wheelchair, pushing herself about an inch or two at a time.
God forbid you got in her way, because she will run you
She would
over.
run. And I'm not even joking. Like, we'd be standing in the hallway, like, at the kiosk charting, and she would be bumping into us because we were not moving. She don't go around, she go through.
She had a plastic dog.
No, it was a Beanie Baby.
No, she also had a dog in her room.
No, I know, but, like, the Beanie Baby was Nikki.
I know. But she also had a plastic dog. Like an outside ornament.
Oh, yeah.
Stands about yay tall. Right? Maybe a little taller. And it was by her bed. And she would chipmunk food all over herself on her person. And then she would
Squirrel it
her-
away.
her happy butt down the hallway to her room to feed her dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then she would make you take this dog out into the hallway
To go potty.
to go potty. And she would watch you. Because if you didn't do it, it was hell. Hell on wheels.
And with the food thing, she was so funny because, like, we had this snack cart, and it was always, like, if it wasn't being passed around, it was, like, in the kitchenette area. And that little shit knew where that was, and she would tootle her little way in there, and she would fill up her
Bra,
her shirt, her
pockets, anywhere she can stuff
anywhere she could stuff snacks. And she would have her Lorna Doones and everything. And then she would go down the hall in the wrong direction, and we knew where she was because, like Hansel and Gretel, we'd be like, "Oh, there's a snack. There's a snack."
Another snack.
And then we'd be like, "Where is Gertrude?" And we'd be like, "That away." Can't you tell by the breadcrumb trail? And then if she got to the end of the hall before somebody caught her, she would turn around and then pick them up on the way back as if they were a new treasure.
Yep.
That was fun.
I think by far she was probably one of the most difficult as far as combative went.
Right. Like, she wasn't terrible, like, throughout the shift. She pretty much kept to herself. Every once in a while she'd get a little spicy with one of the other residents. But for the most part, she kept to herself, just chanting, "I have to go to the bathroom," or sitting by the register, like, burning her shins off.
Mm-hmm.
But the, like, 15-20 minutes that we all had to spend with her, like, 6 times a shift,
yeah,
was
fun.
that was a time. That was a lot of trauma bonding for all of us.
I want to say, I think my favorite resident,
I know exactly who you're gonna say.
we're gonna call her Amelia. And she was on the short haul.
Oh, maybe I don't know who you're talking about. Are you sure it was short or long?
I thought she was on short.
Is this the one with the tattoos?
No.
Oh, then no. Which one is this?
This one is where the daughter always came in, and you had the daughter.
Oh, yes, Amelia.
Yes. So Amelia couldn't. She was so far progressed
She had Parkinson's.
in her disease that like she couldn't talk. She was a full assist.
She was contracted, which means, you know,
Her hands,
she
bodies,
couldn't move.
everything. But she was coherent where she could open her eyes. She was aware to an
She would
extent.
respond every once in a while,
Yeah.
like she could get a word or two out.
She would say, "I love you."
Yep, she would.
Yeah.
Very
We-
much to her daughter, a lot.
Or you and I, we'd go in and we'd tell her how much she was loved and how much we loved her, and hope,
Mhm.
you know, we're so happy to see her again. You know, every time we came on shift, we were like, "Oh, we've missed you," and it's been 4 hours since we clocked out and came back. You know, but I think because she was such a sweetheart, she would whisper, "I love you." It was
Mhm.
just, you could see the gratitude, and her daughter was amazing.
Also,
her daughter,
a very gracious person.
her daughter was in there almost every day with her.
And then on top of it, she was a little spitfire when she wanted to be.
Oh yeah, for sure.
She, I remember one of the first times that you and I went in there together, you were like, "Hey, this is Amelia," and then like you were trying to do our little introduction or whatever when you first meet a new caregiver, and we were chit chatting and talking, and I turned from her bed because the bed was like
she
at
would
waist height.
swing at you.
No, she pinched me.
Oh,
She pinched my ass.
every now and then she'd swing at me, and it's like the slow motion.
Right,
swing.
it literally would be like
just a wide swing.
and then you'd act like she hit you and just be like, "Oh no." But no, I turned to go grab something and she pinched my butt. And then she just got the biggest shit-eating grin, like and again, slow motion, so she would be like,
You could just see it work up.
like if you've ever watched Zootopia, the sloth,
That's Amelia. 100%.
that's Amelia, 100%.
Oh,
She was
God.
the funniest lady. She was so funny. And her roommate, I don't remember her roommate's actual name, but
Wasn't her roommate? She had ALS.
yes, she had Lou Gehrig's disease. We can call her Irene because I honestly
Yeah.
don't even remember her name. But she was funny too.
Oh, yeah.
It just sucked for her because Lou Gehrig's disease, it's a degenerative, very quick, fast acting. She got diagnosed and within the year she had passed. And
She was an above the knee amputee as well
Yep.
on one of her legs.
yep. So and she was so funny because she would get pissed at us for like no reason, very similarly to
Again, nonverbal.
right, nonverbal towards the end.
And, yeah.
In the beginning she wasn't, but like she really lost her speech very quickly.
Yeah.
But she was so funny because she would get so pissed and then she would stop herself mid tantrum and go, "Why am I mad?" And we'd be like,
You tell us.
"Right, we were just kind of going with it." And she'd be like, "I don't know." And then she would just roll away and we're like, crisis averted.
And then I think the one room that we didn't really have to do a whole lot with was the husband-wife duo on short.
Yep.
And that was sad. I mean, they passed.
Very, very closely together.
Like, they went into the nursing home together, and then she did all the cares. Like, her husband deteriorated faster
Mm-hmm.
than she did, and like just a sweetheart of a husband-wife duo. We didn't really have to do much. We just went in, changed linens, waters, snacks, things like that. Reminded them, "Hey, it's lunchtime, it's dinner time.
Right, come out.
Let's go take a shower."
Mhm.
And we would assist with the showers, but
Really,
she
we didn't do a ton.
She did almost everything, and that was her request because she was very much with it. They just couldn't live at home
Yeah.
without the assistance,
Probably the resident that always sticks out to me, I quote her all the fucking time. Jeannie, let's call her.
I wish we could use the
I
actual
do too,
names,
'cause, like, I feel
now
like
I'm
it just-
trying to guess
It
who
adds to
is.
personality. Jeannie. And Jeannie got her first tattoo at like 70 years old.
Yes, she did.
Yes, she did. And she thought it was the funniest thing ever that she had this butterfly tattoo on her hip. She thought she was so funny. And she was with it but not. Like, she went in and out of her dementia. And it was so funny because sometimes when she would be, even when she wasn't in her, like, dementia, like, when she was lucid, she would go, "Hey, want to break out of here?" We'd be like, "Absolutely,
yes,
let's go." And she'd be like, "We'll go get matching tattoos." And be like, "Fuck yes, absolutely." Every day she was trying to convince somebody to break her out of that place, and we would go get matching tattoos.
Yep.
And then on top of it, what I quote from her all of the fucking time is one time I was pushing her down the hall in her wheelchair, and an alarm went off down the hall.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Sam, our coworker Sam, booked it, trucked it down there, like right past us. I had kind of gotten us off to the side so that she could get past. And Jeannie goes, like, hitting me. She goes, "Look at the swing on that back porch." I'm like, "Woman, you're 94.
She was like, I think once you get a certain age, their give a fuck is fucking broke. And
Oh my God. I aspire to that type.
To be that way. So I think one of the hardest residents we had, mind you, the facility we worked in was broken up into sections. So we had our rehab hallway.
We had short-term rehab, East Long and East Short.
So our short-term rehab was like
An
two
L.
hallways that kind of converged and made an L. And then we had East Long and East Short that kind of made an L as well. And those were short-term. They come in shortly after surgery. They're not there very long. Their insurance, private rooms, but their insurance doesn't cover the rehab section of it. So they got like smaller, not as nice rooms.
Right.
And then you have our long and short, West Long, West Short, and those are our long-term, our forever people.
Right, they'll be there till they pass. And then we had Alzheimer's care.
Yep, and our West Long and West Short were 2 beds per room.
Yep.
And then we had our Alzheimer's locked unit as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular patient was, we'll call her Amy on East Short.
Stop.
She had an issue with 98% of the staff.
And guess who fell within the 2% she didn't hate? She didn't like us, but she didn't hate us.
Not like us. She preferred us over anybody else. If she knew we were on,
doesn't matter if we were on that hall or not. If she knew we were there,
if we were in the facility and working, she would refuse care or help from anyone and would request us. We would get pulled.
She would tell the nurse, "I'm not taking that medicine until they come in."
Yep. We can't give medicine, but we had to be in the room before she would even consider taking it.
Why?
Mind you, this woman, 500 pounds?
556. I feel like I remember at her heaviest, the hospital had just weighed her. She was like over 600.
Over 600 pounds. To get her into her wheelchair
was a production.
Was normally for a full assist, it requires 2 people. On a Hoyer lift, you need 2 people.
A Hoyer lift is a full body lift. Like a crane, if you will.
Yep, a sling underneath them. You hook them up to like little eye hooks on this machine, and it raises them up out of bed. You can swing them over and set them down on their toilet, on their wheelchair, wherever, commode, you know. It's just to help because they were too big for us to lift safely. We had to have a Hoyer specifically that could handle her weight.
Most Hoyers are rated for 500 pounds.
We had to get a different Hoyer. And then it was 4 minimum to get her rolled enough to get the sling under one side. And mind you, every little movement, when you're that size, everything hurts. I mean, it hurts to breathe, it hurts to sit up, it hurts to move a leg, everything hurts. So I can understand, you know, her pissiness about everything.
Mm.
And then you'd have to roll her onto her back and then roll her.
her.
So you got two literally using your body as blockades and the other two pushing to get that sling underneath. And like on the days where she requested, because we didn't force her to get out of bed.
Nope.
With everybody else, we highly encourage.
Right. We very much encouraged you either need to get in your wheelchair, sit up in a recliner chair. You need to do something other than lay in bed.
With this particular patient, because she was very much with it mentally, we didn't force nothing. We didn't highly encourage it. Like, we offered, she'd say no, we did not push it.
Right. It was not a, are you sure? Nope. It was a, yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
But to get her into that wheelchair, and I think how long did we work there?
Well, I was there 3.5 years.
I was there a year and a half.
Something like that.
I probably assisted to get her into her wheelchair maybe 5 times.
Maybe.
Most
of the time, if she was going to get out of that bed, it was because she had to go to the hospital
Yep.
for something. And then the EMTs came with a specialized cart. They had a specialized
they had to
slip underneath her.
And they had her in a room where the door was abnormally large.
Yeah.
Because a normal door would not be able to get her out on the bed, on the wheelchair, on anything. Like,
Yep.
the door was widened for her. But yeah, she was very much.
She was one of the hardest patients that we've ever had to deal with.
Mentally.
For a long period of time. Like, I work in the hospital right now, and there are times when I get patients who are there for an extended stay, whether it be because they need a guardian that needs to be court appointed, and that takes fucking forever, or they just have, like, specific wounds that need to be healed, and sometimes that takes months.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends, but she was there for almost the entire duration of me working there.
Yep.
And that was a lot.
She died while we still worked.
I don't think I was working there. I think I left, and very shortly after...
Then I left.
I think very shortly after she passed, and then you left. Because I know you were still working there. And I remember you telling me that she had passed.
Like, and part of me was relieved because now I knew she was no longer in pain.
Right.
But I also felt very guilty because I also felt relieved, like...
Oh, now I don't have to do that.
Like, I don't... And I worked 12, 16-hour shifts almost every shift.
Almost every day.
Every day. And it was the longest 12, 16-hour shifts when she was in facility. When she was in the hospital and hospitalized for whatever reason, it almost felt like a vacation being on the ward.
And you know what's crazy to me? Knowing what I know now of the hospital, she was more than likely on my floor, my current floor, when she came to the hospital. I mean, I never had to deal with her because she had passed before I started working there, but guaranteedly she was on my floor. How crazy. Because my floor is like the hodgepodge.
It just, we throw everybody
right
there.
Like, all the other floors have specialties like cardiac, neuro, palliative, abdominal care, ICU, surgeries and stuff,
PICUs.
ICU, ortho, and cancer. And then there's my floor, med-surg.
That just kind of gets everybody.
We get the non-specialized, like pneumonia and heart failure and stuff, but then on top of that, we get the spillover from the other floors.
I also think 4 is the spillover floor too.
Less so though, because 4 is abdominal surgeries and palliative.
That's probably why I was always on 4.
Yeah, because all your surgeries happen.
Then abdominal.
You're a freaking dork. But anyways.
Well, I always want to be on 6 so you can take care of me.
Yeah, but you don't want to be on my floor.
I do.
You'll never get any sleep. Ever.
I never, like, there's good drugs. I slept fine.
I slept
I
fine.
slept fine. You just hit a button and you're out.
Good night, world. No, it was... Some of these patients are just exhausting.
I get it.
We had a patient... she was back on the Alzheimer's unit, and you know exactly who I'm talking about when I start talking about her. I'm sure you already get it.
Mm-hmm.
We can call her Sam. And Sam had early onset dementia. And early onset dementia is hard for several reasons. First off, and most prominently, it's very hard on the family because, you know, they're 50 and already lost, which really sucks. But for caregivers, it's very hard because they're still mobile. And that's terrible to say, but it's hard when somebody has no clue what they're doing
In every room.
and every ability to get there.
Yep.
And this patient came in. She came in, and from day one, we had to have
A sitter.
a one-on-one observer with her at all times, which if you've ever worked in a nursing home in healthcare at all, we don't have the staff for that shit.
Don't hand me the chips.
We'd love to.
Thank you.
We don't have the staff for that. So to give up a staff member to have to do one-on-ones with her every shift, she was there for what, 42 days?
Mm-hmm.
Something like that?
That was
a long time to have a one-on-one sitter, and it was round the clock. It was day, night, every second of every day. And the reason for that was she would book it.
Uh-huh.
And she would be very aggressive, verbally and physically, with other residents. And I found that out day one, because I drew the short straw, and they said, here you go, you're with her. I walked up and down that fucking unit for 12 hours with one bathroom break and one lunch break. And she cold clocked me in the face. And
I remember that.
Yeah, I do too. Because I remember it very specifically because, I mean, like, I was so tired. It was like 11 o'clock at night. I was working 2 to 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so tired from walking up and down the hall with her and stepping between her and other residents, because she would get in their face and she would go, "You're a loon. Just a loony bin," and just walk away, or like go to hit him, and I would be like, no, and like settle her down. Well, she went to go up to one of our very, very sweet residents who, Alzheimer's, nonverbal, just wanted to walk around and rock her baby dolls. That's all she wanted to do.
That was her thing.
That's all she did. We would take her to the bathroom every once in a while, change her britches, and then off she went.
Yep.
And Sam was going towards her, and I was like caught up with the other patient that she had tried to assault, and so I was like trying to fix them. So I had to run in between her and this other resident, and I turned, and at the last second she just clapped my jaw, and I mean, she cold clocked me and then went on her way, and so I had to like dazedly run after her.
Oh, I remember that.
Was so tired by the end of that night, and like I never stopped moving.
I was on East Short then.
I know, I remember calling you at one point and being like, "You gotta come down here and see this." Like,
that was rough.
She was so rough, and I remember because Cora was in the small apartment.
Yep.
At that time in town, and I had texted my parents. I said, "I'm not coming home tonight. I'm gonna go to Cora's and crash," because I was not
driving.
It's not good to drive, man. So I drove myself as little as possible.
You would think, with how frail and tiny these residents are, that they wouldn't have power behind
They
us.
pack a punch.
They
man.
do. They really, really do.
I am a firm believer of whatever religion or spirituality that you follow. I'm a firm believer that the powers that be make them look that way so that the youngins have no clue what's coming. Those motherfuckers are strong.
Oh yeah.
We have a lady up on my floor right now, and she's so funny. She told me 2 weekends ago, she's like screaming, she's got dementia. So it's so hard sometimes to not laugh because you know that they don't know what they're saying, but it still eggs them on. And she was screaming at me, and she goes, "You need to go on a diet. Maybe then you'll find a man and he'll slap you around a little bit." And I couldn't stop laughing. And I got right in her face. I said, "Joke's on you. I found one and I asked him to hit me." I walked out. Oh my God. Mic dropped.
Oh,
I
why
laughed
did I see
so
you
hard.
doing that?
I laughed so hard, and then I stepped out and my charge nurse goes, "Really?" I was like, "Did you hear that shit?" I was being verbally assaulted. Oh my God. Some of these patients, man.
I think the resident that I looked up to most was on East Short.
Okay.
If you're heading towards like the main offices in Entry, she was on the right. You know exactly. She was never married,
Mm-hmm.
never had kids.
So sweet, though.
So fucking sweet. She literally did everything in life, though. Like,
Yup.
she was highly educated. She had gone to all of these, like, I think her daughter had come in and showed us her scrapbook. 25 different countries. She was well traveled, well versed. She had, I think her daughter had said she knew like 3 or 4 different languages.
Mm-hmm.
She had pictures of her in like a hot air balloon, in planes. Like, she literally lived life to her full,
She
like
did.
the fullest. And she had 2 other siblings, I think, 2 or 3 other siblings,
I don't
and they
remember.
had
You worked
children.
East more than I did.
And they had children, but this woman was like their favorite auntie because, I mean, she would come home with these extravagant gifts
Mm-hmm.
because, I mean, she had a great paying job and literally did whatever she wanted whenever she wanted to. And I'm like, I love the fact that at a time in our history where it was expected of women to
Not do that.
not do any of that, get married, you know, cater to your husband, have kids, do all of that. She was like, fuck that noise. I'm
See
doing
y'all
what I
later.
want. And she did. And she fucking lived. And I was like, you're my dream.
You
like,
are
you
my hero.
literally are my dream. I think I looked up to her the most. And she, like, when she passed,
That was rough.
I cried. Like,
Aw.
that broke my heart. There's been quite a few residents that passed that just absolutely gutted me.
We just had somebody that we both took care of at different times in our lives. Like, I took care of her at a long-term stay in the hospital, and she took care of her in-home health care. And she just passed. And she was a very difficult woman to please at times.
Are we talking about the one with MS?
Mm-hmm.
The teacher?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yep.
She was a very difficult woman to please at times.
At times, yes.
She was
but
particular.
She, I wouldn't say difficult, but I would definitely say particular. She never had kids again, was never
In the
married.
hospital was a much different story than in home, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the hospital, it really sucks. You can't do the things that you're used to doing,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to go by the schedule of the nursing staff. Like, I can't get in there at 9 o'clock to give you a bath. I can't get in there at 10 o'clock to do this. Like, unfortunately.
And we were very regimented in
And-
home. Like,
and
we
we
had a schedule, and she loved it.
And we tried to be with
Mm-hmm.
her after we kind of figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
But I would sit in there and just chit chat with her.
And what was heartbreaking is that it wasn't until I posted something on my Facebook that you realized that we had taken care of the same patient, just at different areas.
At different times of our lives.
But because of HIPAA laws, we couldn't say, hey, have you ever taken care of this
Right,
person?
do you know this woman?
Yeah, we can't say that. So it wasn't until after her passing and it hit the news. And
Or
it
the
hit
obituaries.
The obituary.
The news.
Well, I mean, Facebook is news.
Big news, everyone.
Big news. That she, like, it kind of clicked for both of us. Like, hey. But, I mean, at home, she, again, was never married, didn't have kids. She shared a birthday with my son.
Mm-hmm.
But she was such a sweetheart. But with her, again, like, at that time, I did home care. And my schedule was very I mean, it was fixed but fluid at times.
Very flexible sometimes.
But with her, like, you had to be here at this time. This is when she wanted to go to bed. And you didn't have to be with her all day long. It was just show up at this time to help with cares, then leave, and then somebody else would come in, do cares.
Because I remember she needed to be straight cath 3 times a day. Yeah. And
she would straight cath herself.
Towards the end, she couldn't.
Okay, but in home care, she would straight cath herself.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we always talked about in the hospital, like, because, you know, when we all take care of the same patient, you know, we'll remember them, and I'll be like, do you remember that patient? Like, I have a patient who, what's the opposite of lovingly?
Well, whatever the word
infamously remember as cat scratch fever. That's literally what we remember her as.
Oh God, that does not sound good for us.
No, she was like, she was a bigger woman, but she was mobile. Like, she could walk. Mm-hmm. But she had her 4th or 5th litter of kittens in the year. And one of the cats had scratched her, crazily enough, you know, cat scratch fever. And she got cat scratch fever and had to be hospitalized. And her whole leg, like, cellulitis is crazy. And it took her a really long time to heal. And she actually ended up leaving AMA, which is against medical advice.
Go figure.
Crazily enough. And then got readmitted because the infection had spread. And so then she came back.
Weird how that happened.
Crazy when you leave the hospital before you're discharged. Shit happens like that. And she came back, readmitted, came back to my floor. We were like, hey, how's it going, cat scratch? And, like, that's what we remember her as. So she was down in a different room than she originally was. And I remember this woman. She was a smoker. And smokers have a little bit more trouble in the hospital than non-smokers because you obviously don't get to light up a cigarette. So you get nicotine patches. Well, some people don't take well to those. So this motherfucker. And
if you've never been in the medical field, you cannot get all huffy and butthurt over the way we talk because you don't know. You have no fucking
You've
clue.
never taken care of somebody. You've never had somebody pressing their call button 30 seconds after you walked out and had asked, do you need anything else? And then go, no, I'm good now. Walk out, press the call button. What you need? A glass of water. Or I have to go to the bathroom now.
You don't get to be angry with us.
So this motherfucker had her family bring her a vape a day. And with her, so nicotine patches, here's a little science for you guys. Nicotine can cause cardiac arrhythmias.
Huh.
When taken at high doses, which is why they are very careful when prescribing nicotine patches to say, don't smoke, don't do this, don't overdose yourself with nicotine. This motherfucker, first off, hid nicotine patches in her bag, and then she would get one from the nurse and then put another one on. So she was overdosing herself. And then secondly, after they figured that out and took away the nicotine patches, she would have her family bring in vapes. And if you vape or whatever, it's got nicotine in it. And we would literally be at the nurse's station watching her heart rate go from ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. We'd be like that. She's got a freaking vape again. So yeah, we'd be watching her heart rate go crazy up at the nurse's station as she's vaping, or like somebody would walk past her room and see like a puff of smoke or whatever vape come out.
Luca James.
Luca's having a conniption right now.
Yeah, something set him off.
That pisses him off.
What?
The ring. He hears the ring. And
that wasn't what set him off before.
No, but I'm saying like that sets him off now.
Luca
Anyways.
James, settle.
So we'd be watching her heart rate go crazy up at the nurse's station, or like we'd walk past and see the puff, and we'd be like, "Oh my gosh, give!" And she'd be like, "I don't have anything." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, good joke." Like, Jesus Christ, woman.
All right, so I think that's enough with the nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. going on to our next stage of life.
Oh my gosh.
I loved working in home health care. I think I loved it more than I loved working in a facility. But on the other hand, like, they both had the pros and cons.
See, we worked for the same company for in-home facilities. In-home healthcare. Scrambled eggs.
A little bit.
Honestly. But, like, your version of it is very different from what I experienced because you had kind of an in with the owners ish.
No, I didn't know who they were.
No, but like you had a rapport with them when I got there.
When you got there, I had already moved up in the company from just like an in-home care worker as a skill. Like, as I was still certified, so I could do more cares in home versus just somebody who didn't have
off the street
that didn't have the CNA license that could only do like cleaning and grocery shopping and, you know, driving them to the clinic and back. Like, they couldn't do the personal cares.
Right. And like when I got there,
I was the client service supervisor at the time.
You were. And like when I got there and I started with them, and I had a fairly flexible schedule. Like, I was like, just put me where you want me. Put me in, coach. I'm ready. And they just didn't.
It wasn't so much the owners. It was
the scheduler
who I think and at that point, like, I had become close with her, and she was so overwhelmed with other workers who were constantly calling in or not showing up for a shift, and I think that's where she would call you and be like, hey.
But she wouldn't. Like, that was the thing, is I never got like last minute shifts or anything like that. They had me with the one person in Stratford.
Okay.
And had me there, and then that person fired me because she didn't like my car. Which was very strange, but whatever. I guess I don't care all that much. And then I had like one other person that I went to, and then one other house. It was a doctor and his wife. And I took care of that one for a little while. But I honestly only was working for like a month and a half there.
Yeah, you didn't get the hours, so you're like, I need something
different.
Well,
they wouldn't give me any fucking hours, and I was really annoyed by it because I would be like, hey, I can work more, like.
And I was overwhelmed with the hours.
Right. Like, but that was the thing, is you were going, man, I don't have enough manpower, and I'm like, I'm here. And everybody was like, Lacey's fine.
Yep.
And I think that's where both you and I got fed up with them at about the same time for different but same reasons.
Yeah. I think, like, when I first started off, though, I was placed in a home that I don't think could have been a more perfect fit.
Yeah, oh my God.
My first day with this company was their first day with this company. And he had been diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And it was just absolutely sad. Like, it broke your heart. You knew
it did.
He knew he was dying. You knew he was dying. Like,
the whole
everybody
family knew
there was no coming back from this. But they still tried. I mean, they were still trying like this experimental cap to kind of cool his brain down, hoping like that would slow down the brain cancer cells. But it was, I think what made it a great fit was we bonded immediately over the fact that our mutual love for Chicago. Like, I am a huge Chicago Bears fan. Urlacher is my boy. Like, I will die on this hill. I love the Cubs. I love the Blackhawks, the Bears, like
all of them.
That's my city. I will die on that hill through and through. But they were huge Chicago fans. More so more
Sword.
so more so towards like hockey. We would watch hockey. And there are many nights where we discussed football. His son helped me with my mock NFL draft when I was like, well, I'm gonna try it this year, and he was like, well, I do it every year. I'm like, okay, great. Like, and I became very close with his kids and his wife. Like, I would take him to go get flowers for her. I mean, even still to this day, I'm still very close with quite a few of them. I still get happy birthdays from his wife or random text messages saying, hey, we miss you. Like for many years afterwards, she would send me chocolate covered strawberries on my birthday because she knew how much I loved them. And like it was every year it would without fail. Their son, well, her stepson, his son, is still one of my best friends to this day. Like I could share pretty much anything with this man, and there's no judgment, no nothing. Like when I went through my divorce, like his help through it was invaluable.
Right.
Especially when it came to me worrying about my kids. Like he was the first one to say, I'll write you a letter of recommendation. Like you are probably the best mom I have ever met. They allowed me to bring my kids over and make cookies.
Right.
Like, it was just, I love this family. I still go out to his grave every year. I still put Oreos out.
Side note, so I had only met this person like 2 or 3 times before he passed. I didn't really have much to do with them. But I was still invited to come to his funeral because the first time that we met, he told me, because he and I bonded over our love for Oreos. And he told me, he's like, well, when I die, we're having an Oreo bar at my funeral.
And they had like a cake. Literally, it was Oreos in the shape of a cake.
And I told him, well, bet I'll be there. And he goes, Pop-Tart, you set it up. And that was his and he called her Pop-Tart because it was hilarious. And it's still, that's what your name is in my phone.
That funeral hurt.
That was a hard funeral to be at. And like, again, I really didn't have much stake in it.
And I was there every day, Monday through Friday, 8 to 12 hours a day. Like, that was my primary
That
house.
was your place to be. That was your house. And yeah, like it's hard.
He helped me study for my EMT.
It's
every assignment.
It's hard when you get so
quiz.
Close.
Like they weren't just another client to me. He was family. They all were.
Right. And it's very much so when you step into this caregiver role, you have to be almost willing to give yourself 100% of the time, especially within home health care. But even like now with my working in the hospital or whatever, when, management, when they tell you, you have to leave your stuff at the door,
it's hard.
It's hard. And it's harder, I think, to leave work at work.
Yep.
Because like there are times, like I have a patient up there right now who has been with us for quite a while, and my floor is not the palliative floor. Palliative is like acute, you're gonna pass within, I think it's 6 months is what
it's the step before hospice.
Yeah, so like you're gonna pass within like 6 months to a year or something like that. But it's basically comfort care. So you're not treating the disease, you're treating the symptoms, you're treating the pain that comes along with it.
You're just making them as comfortable as possible
without trying to like overdose them.
Yeah.
So it's quite the balancing act, and I feel so bad because it's almost as if you have to be 2 people. One person for the patient and one person for the family, and that person differs a lot of the time. Whereas like if I or a loved one of mine were to be in that situation, I would be pretty eyes wide open to the fact that yes, they're going to pass. Like, we have to be thinking of next steps, and sometimes people can't see past their blinders of I want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is almost harder to deal with when you're trying to discuss with family what is happening. Like, I just had to explain to somebody the other day that their family member wasn't awake because of all of the medications we were giving them. And they were like, well, why are you giving them? Because they're in pain. Why are they in pain? Because of the disease. Well, what are we doing to treat the disease?
We're not.
We're not anymore. They signed a palliative agreement. They want these medications. They're not comfortable anymore. And it's one of the hardest things. And there was one patient, and this is like the only really religious thing that I've ever dealt with as far as patients go and dying patients, is I had this woman when I worked at the other nursing home, not the one you and I worked together. And her husband had passed many moons previous, and yeah, she would just lay right there. That's a good boy. And she was in the nursing home. She had cancer everywhere. And she had not decided, you don't just like wake up and decide, but she had started going through the process of becoming a Jehovah's Witness. I'm not here to judge.
Okay, I judge a little.
I judge quite a bit, but like when it comes to my patients, I try not to judge. You know, I'm atheistic. I don't believe in God. I believe in spirituality and the fact that the energy you put out into the universe is the energy that you will eventually receive. Karma.
Eventually. I'm waiting for it to come back here.
I said eventually, bro.
It's been 34 years.
What is
it bumping back?
Yeah. But I will also always be a proponent of, if you are Catholic, if you are Mormon, if you are a Jehovah's Witness, Islamic, I will pray with you. I will do whatever it is you need me to do for you to feel comfortable. Because when it comes to people who are dying, all bets are off.
Yep.
And I would rather somebody die peacefully with me praying over them than them screaming in pain and scared.
When this particular patient had passed, before he had passed, you okay?
Yeah, it's just it's a big topic. I don't like it, and it's just frustrating.
I can see it in your eyes, like I can see it in you.
It's just frustrating sometimes when people it's more frustrating to me when people are like, I don't relate to that, and they won't do things with people because of that. It's just really frustrating for me.
When this patient, the family that I had gotten really close to, when he was actively passing, they called me that night.
I remember that. You called me on the way there.
And they're like, we want you here. If you want to be here, like, be here. And they were a good 35 minutes from 40 minutes from where I lived.
Yeah, I was on that phone call almost the whole way, and you got there in what, 20?
Yeah.
Maybe?
And like, for them to open that door and say, you've been such a big part of our lives for the last 10 months. We want you here. Please come if you want.
Right.
They even put me in the obituary.
I remember that.
Like, I had gotten him the Chicago Bears like neck pillow. That
one right there.
Yep. They had put it around his neck, like, to kind of help comfort him. They put it on his bed afterwards and made his bed look nice, and taken a picture. Like, they included me in the very small,
in the end
that it hurts,
right? It's just
years later. Like, this family is so amazing.
It's just gripping what happens.
You know, when you find family that you click with, and there's going to be patients and residents that you just don't vibe with, but you go out of your way. Like, I had a patient every Friday. I had her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you hungry? Well, yeah. Okay, what do you want? I want a shake, and I want a fish sandwich from McDonald's. She's on a very fixed income. I would go and get her a shake and a fish sandwich. It had gotten to the point where I quit asking, and I would just go and get it and bring it to her before I even showed up for my shift.
Yep.
Like, and we'd sit on her porch,
and that's all.
And it was that little bit of extra. You know, it's going out of your way to give them some comfort, because sometimes these people don't have family, and you're the closest thing to family, or they have this big, beautiful, loving family that is around, but they open their arms and embrace you too. You know, it's very much a rewarding and heartbreaking. Lily, not you, Luca.
I'm the one that's barking.
Sorry. Well, thank God you're not barking. Sorry, my daughter's here. She's just, we're trying to keep her off camera to kind of keep her safe. But
that was funny. Lily.
Oh, it's very heartbreaking. It's very rewarding. It's very frustrating when you get into CNA work or home health care or nursing
or anything like that.
in the hands-on part of the medical
direct
field.
bedside care.
It is one of the, I want to say, it's going to be your biggest highs and your lowest lows.
I had a patient when we were working at the nursing home, and I don't know that you ever met her, because when I was doing my stint back on short-term rehab for, I don't remember why I was back there for so long, but I was. And she had been in a terrible car crash with her husband, and she got T-boned, and it was on her side, and all of her
everything was just a mess.
Everything was fucked up. They had to do a huge resection of her bowel. Like, her stomach was really, really stable. She wasn't a very big woman to begin with. Like, they had to do a lot digestively wise. She already had celiac disease. So,
and that's rough.
That's rough by itself.
Yeah.
Now you add all the motility issues from the resection. And, like, dairy, she wasn't able to have much dairy at that time because of how her stomach was settling
and digesting things,
and like, she honestly, I don't know how this woman survived the first month of post hospitalization, because we like barely could give her anything. And I remember one night I was passing snacks. And snacks.
I love that name. Sorry, go ahead.
I was passing snacks back there, and I stopped in her room and I said, "Do you want anything?" And she just looked at me. She was so sad, and she goes, "I can't have anything that's on there," because they would have like.
I remember her.
She was the sweetest woman. She we would have Lorna Doones and pretzels and ice cream.
I think we started sneaking things in.
I didn't sneak anything in. But she told me, she goes, "All I want is an orange popsicle." And she told me this story about how her grandma used to make her orange popsicles when she was young. And they were her comfort food or whatever. You better fucking believe, before my next shift the next day, I stopped at the store and I picked up popsicles. And I separated out every orange one in the freezer and put her name on it. And that night for snack, I came in and I gave her an orange popsicle. I've never seen somebody cry over a fucking popsicle before, but she fucking cried over a popsicle.
It's
and
the little
every
things.
day since every day that she stayed there, I had popsicles there for her if she wanted them.
Yeah.
And her husband and her were the sweetest and had the cutest love story ever. They met each other very late in life. They each had families and kids of their own. They were grown. They got married on Valentine's Day on a cruise. And he was the most doting and loving husband I've ever met. He was so good. And, like, he was a very emotional man, too, which is never a bad thing.
No.
And he he would cry when I would be moving her because it hurt him to see her hurt.
in pain.
But he also, I think every shift gave me a hug
Yep.
because he was so grateful that I was so gentle with her. And just that little bit, and I actually ran into them. It was probably about a year ago, and she told me, because they were heavily Catholic, heavily religious,
Mhm.
which again,
To each their
to
own.
each their own. And to make her feel better, I had sketched a cross with all of her family's names on it. And it was, I mean, I'm not an artist by any means, but she was so thankful, and she told me that in her house's entryway that they had like tons of crosses that meant something to each of them.
Yeah.
And that cross still hangs in their entryway.
Aw.
I know. And like it's literally on just a piece of sketch paper. But she's like, I have it still hanging. I'm like,
It
okay.
really-
Ow.
something so little to us can
It
it can
means
be
so
a,
much.
it could be a game changer. I mean, it can change that person's whole experience and outlook, and ultimately their
healing process.
their healing process, especially on like the short term where they're just in and out.
Right.
you know?
I mean, she was there for 3-ish months, I think.
So that is short term.
It's short term in terms of like a nursing home and healing, but you know, it's just crazy to me the stuff that we see.
Mhm.
And like, I don't know how many times or like every week I come home with a different story of something that has happened, whether it be good or bad. Most of the time bad, but like every once in a while those little stories, those little things that happen,
It makes it worth it.
it makes it so worth it.
20, 30, 40 years down the road, we're not going to remember the horrible parts of our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to remember the little things that
Made it worth it, made it better.
just sit. They hit you in your soul and they're with you forever. Now, we will never see some of these patients ever again.
No,
There's 98% of them we'll never see again. On the ones that are short term, that we're in and out, there might be a chance where we will see them.
run into them and go, man, I think I remember you
Yeah.
from somewhere.
But then, like, our soul recognizes them,
Right.
and we will have the good, heartbreakingly amazing stories for the rest of our life.
Absolutely.
And like when I was going through my CNA course, like my kids at that time, they're like, oh my god, that's so cool, because I would practice my skills on them. Same with my EMT. When I was going through that, I would practice on them. And for years, you'd ask my kids, what did they want to be when they grew up? And because I would come home with these cute little stories and
Right, little blurbs.
Yep. They're like, I want to be a CNA just like my mom. I want to be an EMT just like my mom. She saves people. She saves their souls. She makes them happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not out here saving people.
Right. I'm not out here performing CPR and
But
doing the little thing. Those
You
big
do
things.
heal a little bit of their soul when you come in with these good intentions and these good vibes and a happy demeanor. You heal a little bit of them every time, whether they show it or not. You do heal them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sticks with them,
More so.
more so for the rest of the, like, you'll have, Gertrude, she will
Forever
never
live in infamy.
she'll forever live in infamy, and she will never she's no longer with us.
Well,
but
even her at the end, I mean,
you could tell, like, she remembered, that we were nice and that we did what she had wanted.
and I will tell you, she was not a good person in her life.
In real life, no.
Her power of attorney, as we all understood it, was some old neighbor that she had.
She had no family,
Because she
no
had
friends.
no family, no friends,
Nobody
nothing.
wanted to be around her. She was just not a good
She wasn't a
human.
good person to be around. And at the end of her life,
Which was heartbreaking.
which
in
was
and of itself.
heartbreaking, she couldn't really get out of her bed. She wasn't going to the bathroom much. We all knew she was actively passing. And I ended up staying that night because we knew we
going.
kind of assumed that she was going to go. And she was screaming
Yep.
in her room, I want someone to hold my hand.
Yep.
So
She didn't
even
want to pass alone.
even for that very not nice person, the fact that I could do that for her and show her that compassion in the last couple hours of her life,
if we can help it, we will never allow you to pass alone.
we will, unless that's what you want. Like, you know,
mean-
some people want to pass by themselves, but
And-
very rarely is that a thing.
I mean, we had the woman on Long, that in between cares,
Oh yeah,
like it was, I had gone in,
15 minutes.
I had changed, repositioned, we had cleaned her up. I mean, she was a 2-person care. She was bedbound pretty much, and like by the next hour and a half, I went back in to check on her. She was gone. She
And
had
it's
passed.
crazy.
And I'm like, and I think that was my first real death in that facility. After, I mean, it was just shortly after I had just started.
Mhm. It was
a
very-
couple months.
It was normally, as a CNA, especially in a nursing home, you don't see very
No.
much passing, very much death. It happens. Normally they happen in threes, but like it's just
and then you have to go about your death cares,
right,
you know,
which you
but
don't get to practice very often
No.
because of that.
So you like, I was like, you awake? Like, I'm like, and then I take a step back and I'm like, I'm looking at her, like the door, and I'm looking back at her, and I'm looking back at the door, and I'm like, I think you might be dead. Like, I was terrified.
Right, like,
Absolutely
not used to that.
petrified. I'm like, oh my god, I killed her. So I'm like, I'm at that point in panic mode, reaching in, like checking for a pulse. I'm like,
Mhm.
shit. And then leaving, and then like hustling it in a fast walk down the hallway because I didn't want to like run and wake everybody up or cause a combobulated issue. But
Mhm.
I'm like,
I think there's a problem.
I think, you know, so and so in this room, I think she's dead. And they're like, what? I'm like, I think she passed. They're like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm kind of freaking out.
Freaking out, man.
Kind of freaking out. And they're like, it's okay, just take a deep breath. And I was shaking. And then the nurse went down, confirmed time of death. And then she was like, okay, well, you
Do
got
your
to
death cares.
You got to do your death cares before, you know, family comes in. Because she was like, I'm going to go notify family. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. So she's notifying family. She's calling them, like, the funeral home so that they can come pick her up. And I, like, have to get now this patient undressed.
Mhm.
I have to give her a full bed bath. I have to put another adult depends on her because, I mean, when you die, your body
Defecates and
relaxes
urinates.
and everything kind of just expels. So you don't want to not put an adult depends on her.
Mhm.
So you put an adult depends on her and you get her dressed in her best clothes,
Mhm.
you know, and it may not be the outfit that she got buried in, but it was the outfit
That they came in and saw.
that, you know, we're presenting now your loved one. So I'm having to pick out, I'm like,
I don't-
what do I put on her?
Right.
You know, how you're combing her hair and you're making sure her face is washed. And you're making her as presentable as possible. I mean, it's going to be hard enough on the family.
Right.
And I'm like, and like leaving right, finishing my cares and coming out right as the family was
Ready.
running down the hallway.
Mhm.
I think is seared into
your
my brain. That was my first death at that facility.
You know what's really sad is I don't even remember who my first death was.
I mean, once you
It's-
have one, you
10 years of CNA work
And
and
death.
so much. And then I think a big part of it too was my floor was the COVID floor.
Yeah.
And I saw so much death in those 2 years that it all just kind of blurs together.
Mhm.
Like there's a couple that stand out, but my last story I will give is a happy and sad one.
Okay.
There was a patient on my floor. She had like almost every fucking kind of cancer that you can think of. Honestly, from the time she was 11 to when she passed at 45. and we were taking care of her, which was weird that she was on my floor because we're not the cancer floor, but she wasn't receiving treatment for cancer. She was receiving treatment for an infection in her skin. So it was weird, but it was okay. Not okay, but whatever. She was like 45, and on my floor, I'm known as the singing CNA.
Yep.
Because I can't hear words that could potentially go to a song without singing that song.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a thing. And I have a coworker who also bursts into song with me, so that's really nice because we just sing along together. And this patient had cancer, and we all kind of knew that she was going to be passing in the next couple months, like a month or two. She was just getting this infection cleared up in the hospital, needed IV medication, then she was going to go to a nursing facility where she would eventually pass. Super sweet girl. She had lost most motor function in her legs, quite a bit of it in her hands, and needed a lot of assistance. And this was right around the time that Encanto came out.
I love that movie.
I love that fucking movie. And Cassie...
Lily, can you sing Encanto?
Oh, I don't know. I
So,
don't like singing out loud.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
But
you
not
do.
to random people.
They can't see you.
right.
No, but even though if someone doesn't see me or do see me, I get super nervous for singing and then my voice cracks.
That's okay, baby. You have a beautiful voice.
Mm-hmm. So this was right around the time Encanto came out. And Cassie, the nurse, and I... Cassie is the nurse. We were in there and we were doing cares, and I don't remember what the hell we were jamming out to, but we were jamming out to something. It was Disney, such as. And
All of us have young kids, so Disney tends to be
the
it
go-to
thing.
So we were jamming out, and then Cassie and I started talking about Encanto, and this patient was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "No, I brought my iPad in for her the next day, and she goddamn watched it." And so
I remember you telling me that. You didn't tell me, everything that was going on with her, but you did tell me that you had a patient that had not seen Encanto,
So
and you
then-
were like gobsmacked about it. Like, what?
she got about halfway through the movie, and then Cassie and I went in to do cares with her or whatever. So we were all watching the movie as we were doing cares and stuff, and Cassie and I were singing along, and we were joking because the next day she was going to be moved to the nursing home, and we weren't going to see her again. And
Was she the one, like, you got shirts for?
yes.
Yeah.
So good job, buddy.
Luca.
So this patient was so funny because we would sing, and she would kind of sing along with us and stuff as she could. She couldn't really verbalize a lot, but music uses both parts of your brain, so she's using brain power across
Both hemispheres.
across the hemispheres, and it's so much easier to sing than it is to speak sometimes. And so she would utilize that, and that it helped us. It was therapeutic for her, so we would do that. And we were kind of joking with her. We were like, what are you gonna do when you get to the nursing home? You're gonna get bed baths and silence. And she like shouted, like she couldn't speak very well, but she shouted, "My life is a goddamn musical." Shirts. We made shirts. And Cassie and I still, to this day, when we're in a sing-songy mood, will yell down the hall, "My life is a goddamn musical!" And it is just the funniest thing. And I'm so grateful that I got to meet her and that we got to work with her, because 2 days later she passed. She got to the nursing home, and within 24 hours she had passed. And
That's
fact,
heartbreaking.
it is, but it was good. Her family was there with her when she did die.
And her last couple days,
We
you guys
filled it with
with
as much joy as possible. And I will never not hear those words. When I am singing Encanto to my child, I will always be thinking my life is a goddamn musical. And it's just those little things that
really is.
working as a CNA, a caregiver, a nurse.
Like, being on the admin side now for the better part, or going on 5 years.
Mhm.
I have been out of the whole hands-on
bedside nursing and
Yeah.
bedside healthcare.
for 5 years. I miss.
Some of those connections that you make.
I do. I don't miss the bullshit politics and, state coming in and it being like absolutely crazy and short staffed, because when state comes in, you have all the staff in the world. You have everybody you need. Every hallway has every CNA is
Yep.
required. But when state's not coming in, you're back down to being short staffed and people calling in and this, that, and the next thing. I mean, when we worked at the facility,
Oh my God.
okay, I'm crazy.
We know.
On my days off, what did I do?
Oh my God. Well, so there was this time where we had a sister facility like,
North of us.
2 hours north of us
Yeah.
or something. So this sister facility was very short staffed, and they sent out basically like a cry for help, saying
A big cry.
saying we need staff. Will you send staff? Or those people can just like volunteer, come up, work for us. We'll pay for their hotel room. We'll pay for their mileage.
You got mileage. They paid for your hotel room. You got a food allowance.
Mhm.
They also paid you, I think, double time.
Something like that.
I
It
know
was
it
either double
was-
time or time and a half.
I know it wasn't time and a half. I think it was
It was
double
double
time.
time then.
I was making bank. I was rolling the money in.
But with that, she worked 80, 90 days in
90,
a row.
I think 93 or 94
It was-
days the first time in a row. So I would work my shifts down here, my scheduled shifts, and then say I had Thursday, Friday off.
She would go for those
I would
2
go
days.
Thursday, Friday. I would drive 2 hours north. I would stay in a hotel, and I would work 16-hour shifts up there, and then go back to my hotel, work a 16-hour shift, go back to my hotel, work an 8-hour shift, drive home to make it in time for my 2 p.m. shift down here, and work a 12-hour shift, and then do the whole process over. So I did that for 93 or 94 days straight before I took my first 2 days off.
And you slept those days.
I did. I was missing my kids. I was video chatting my kids. I mean, at the time I was married.
Mm-hmm.
So I was seeing my kids when I was home and working in my home facility. But I was only seeing them for short bits. I mean, I had come home, literally face planted my bed on Mother's Day, only to be woken up 5 minutes later to this big behemoth of a man that was a family friend running through my house, up the stairs, past my bedroom, into my daughter's room, because her dad had opened up her window with the screen. The screen was in there, had opened up her window the night before so she could get fresh air in, but she had pushed the screen out. Mind you, this was like 6:30 in the morning. She had pushed the screen out, and she was climbing half out of her window as he was pulling into her driveway to pick something up. He had just seen her and was like, what the hell? He literally laid his bike over and bolted into the house to grab her, because my then husband, ex-husband now, was sleeping in the chair downstairs, and I had just gotten home, and I face planted, and I was out, still wearing my scrubs.
And as crazy as she is, the apple does not fall far.
No, she is very much a mini me. But then, like, I did my first 2 days home, and I slept.
Mhm.
Like, I would come home in between shifts, and I would be passed out on the floor while the kids watched cartoons, and they would snuggle, and I would be asleep taking a 2-hour nap before I had to get up and go back to work. So I did that 93, 94 days, took 2 days off, and then I did it for another 80?
Another 86 it
86
was.
or 87 days straight
87.
again. Like, you couldn't. And I think the facility up north was, like, they weren't as up to date as we were down here.
Our facility in this area was like brand spanking
Yeah.
new when
And-
I started there.
And this facility, 2 hours north, was very
Older.
outdated. It very much looked like a mental ward. And the patients were very much mental ward-ish. I mean, I had a patient up there that would literally get naked and cover himself in fecal matter, cover the walls, and like, it would take 3 of us holding a sheet up to get in. Otherwise, you would be getting hit with
Poop.
feces, and like we'd have to like hug him in the sheets, and then get him in a restraint chair, and I'm like, I'm not comfortable, and they're like, too damn bad. This is what we do.
Right, this is what's
I'm like,
happening.
this guy needs a different facility because we are not equipped here state-wise.
Right, we're
This
not
is
allowed
not
to do
acceptable.
this.
Yeah, and there were so many codes that were broken up
Violated.
there, and I like was so uncomfortable. So when I worked up there, I very much did everything that I would do down here up there, and they're like, we don't do that, and I'm like, too damn bad.
Right.
Like, this is what state requires. This is what I'm doing.
Right, I'm
You
not
know.
getting dinged for nothing.
I'm not losing my license because you guys want to play, fast and loose. Like, this is not what we're doing. But yeah, I made very good money, but I also sacrificed a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when you work in home care, you have two very distinguished families. You got your home family, and then you've got your medical family, and that medical family is split into the people you work with because they are in the trenches with you.
We're all trauma bonded.
Very much so. And then you've got your patients that you bond to as well that become family.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard to put yourself in those boxes.
It is. But that's the end of it. You guys keep tuning in.
If home care or, healthcare interests you,
We're here.
we're here in this. They're very short staffed. I would
Yeah.
suggest if you are that type of person that is caring and loving and wanting to do this, I
Highly recommend.
go get licensed. Go do it. It is probably the most rewarding thing you will ever do. But on the other hand, like,
It's hard.
it is very hard, and we're short staffed throughout admin side and the hands-on side of things. We're short staffed all the way through, so come help us.
Help.
Come help us. We are drowning.
But tune in next week. We'll talk about what we talk about and
You'll like it, and
Hope
if you
to see
don't,
you there.
scroll
scroll away.
away.
Okay,
No,
bye-bye.
go to